I really, really want to believe the Liberal Party is ready to take the bull by the horns, regroup after the thumping election loss, and be a clear and strong alternative to Labor. But honestly, I'm not sure yet. Sussan Ley has been elected leader of the Liberal Party, the first female leader of the Liberal Party, backed in by the Liberal left. And congratulations to her for being the first female. Yes, it does carry weight. Now, personally, I don't care about the gender of an individual in a high-profile role, as long as they can do the job and they've gotten there through merit. Now, she's a mother, a grandmother, a very smart woman. She's been a commercial pilot, a farmer, an air traffic controller, amongst other things, and of course was recently the deputy opposition leader. And perhaps she can portray a softer side than what the party was able to do with Peter Dutton. But the question now is, and this is key, is she the person to lift the party out of one of its biggest crises? And I'm not yet convinced. And now is the time for a quick reset, especially as we face another 3 years of Labor, a party which has already left us broke, backwards, divided, in $1 trillion of debt, more exposed than ever on the defence front, with a broken renewables system, and in the lurch for the future. And I want to give Sussan Ley the benefit of the doubt. Give her a go, I really do. And I hope for the sake of the party that she is going to take it forward. But if Sussan Ley cannot put up a genuine alternative policy to Labor, and already today we didn't really get a lot of certainty on that, albeit it is early days, obviously, then it's goodbye. The Liberals will be in the wilderness for years. And I will have more on policy in a moment. But here she was today pledging that she is up for the job.
We listened to the Australian people on Saturday, and we will continue to listen to them around the country. We have to have a Liberal Party that respects modern Australia, that reflects modern Australia, and that represents modern Australia. And we have to meet the people where they are. And that's what I am committed to doing and what I'm determined to do. I want to do things differently, and we have to have a fresh approach.
And a fresh approach is absolutely needed. But this was not a resounding victory for Sussan Ley. She was voted in 29 to 25 to Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor. Now, if you take away the votes of Linda Reynolds, Holly Hughes and Richard Colbeck, who are leaving because of the Senate, and all who voted for her, well, realistically, it leaves her with 26 votes. It's almost a tie. It's not a convincing win. So the question is she keeping the seat warm for a few years, only to be rolled at the 11th hour ahead of the next election? It is hardly a case for unification. Now, secondly, she spoke there about Liberal Party values. But what does that mean? Because we've got a moderate opposition leader in Sussan Ley and a moderate deputy in Ted O'Brien. So not only did the Liberals abandon their Conservative base through their Labor-like policies and position changes at the election, they now have voted in two moderates, yet hope to reclaim their base and hope for this fresh approach. And call me cynical, but this is unconvincing to me and hardly inspiring. And yes, of course it comes down to policies. Yes, it comes down to having an alternative, but already I fear this new Liberal Party is off to a shaky start. First on nuclear policy, here was Sussan Ley.
Having federal government-owned nuclear power stations, is that going to be your position, do you think, going forward?
Well, just here in this party room only a couple of hours ago, I committed to my colleagues that there would be no captain's calls from anywhere by me. And I also committed during the discussions I had with them this week that we would work through every single policy issue, we would canvass the different views, and we would take the time to get it right.
Now, of course, it had only been hours since she was voted in, but compare this to Nationals leader David Littleproud yesterday.
We've had the courage on nuclear energy, something that our party room has believed in for a very long time. An all-renewables approach won't work, but it was our party room from many people before us that had the courage to come forward, but it was us, it was our party room that delivered it.
They're two very contrasting answers. And the point is, if she's not making captain calls, then the Liberal left may triumph. And that is a worry if serious and hard decisions are not made by its leader. Take this, for example.
This is a policy that went to an election. The election result was devastating. So the message from the community is very, very clear, and that's why I believe that this nuclear policy has to go.
Unbelievable. And if that's the case, the Liberals would have learnt nothing, because we need nuclear energy to shore up supply in this country. It is the only option. And nuclear was a key point of difference, you remember, for the coalition before it ran away from it in the dying weeks of the campaign.
Why didn't you go to the sites earmarked for a nuclear reactor? Why didn't you get 80 by your side at press conferences every week and try and sell this policy? I got the feeling you dropped it like a hot potato.
It's not been a huge issue at this election, either for or against. And I think people have prioritised other issues, and that's probably where the campaign's concentrated.
Now, if you're not going to go bold, you won't win elections, and that should be the lesson from this election. We know nuclear is a proven energy resource in powerhouses like the US and UK, and if we want to keep the lights on, nuclear is it. Now, secondly, on net zero by 2050.
There are different views about how we appropriately reduce emissions. Now, we need to reduce emissions in this country, and Australia needs to play its part in reducing emissions.
But the problem is this again may put the party at odds with the Nationals, as David Littleproud has put ditching that target on the table.
You cannot run an economy of the industrial scale the size of Australia on an all renewables approach. Just look at Spain and Portugal. The reality is even Anthony Albanese is saying your energy bill is going to go up, not down. And so what we'll do is calmly and methodically work through our policy settings and what that means to make sure that we have a position that addresses the cost of living crisis, because energy is the economy.
Now, if the Liberals want to win back the base, ditch net zero by 2050, because the world's biggest emitters, including the US and China, are moving away from this target and are in favour of nuclear. This renewables fantasy we know is a disaster in this country. It is plunging us further into the darkness during heat waves and cold snaps. All the while, coal is being driven out of the system. The Paris Agreement is a joke. It's a waste of our time. We have to keep moving forward with keeping the lights on in this country. Now, my third policy point is on female representation in the Liberal Party. 3 years ago, it was the same old tiresome narrative that the election loss was due to a lack of women. 3 years later, there are calls again for gender quotas. Look, what an absolute diabolical insult, in my view, to have women in Parliament because of their gender. Not on merit, not because they're the best person for the job, not because they've earned it, but because of their gender. And this is not why the Liberal Party lost the election. It is true that earlier this year, women strongly favoured the coalition, but by the end of April, that had blown up. If you look there, the coalition's lead among female voters reversed from 51 to 49 in January to 46 to 54 in favour of Labor. That was a week out from the poll. But this was largely due to its work-from-home policy. And Sussan Ley wasn't shying away from the possibility of quotas when asked today.
I want to say right here and now, we need more women in our party. We need more women in our party organisation. We need more women in this party room. Had we done better at the last election, we would have outstanding women in this party room.
Is the Deputy opposed to quotas and targets for women?
I support what the leader just said.
OK, moving along.
Look, she's not wrong about more female representation, but there was no definitive answer there. And it's not about more female representation or moving to the centre, because the more you raise this gender card, the more you stray away from those conservative values. And goodness me, you may as well be the Labor Party then with quotas. It's about a strong, cohesive policy platform reflecting those values and also policy which reflects women. Now, the other point I would make here is on Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price. She pulled out of the deputy leadership role after it became apparent Angus Taylor was not going to win. And I really hope her defection from the Nationals has not been a waste of time, because politics is tough. It is so brutal. And this is a woman who, in my view, is a born leader and one of the only voices of common sense. She single-handedly helped get that no vote in the Voice to Parliament referendum over the line. She clearly loves this country, does not seek to divide us by the colour of our skin, and she really sticks to her values. And it would be of detriment to the party in this reboot phase not to give Senator Price a key role in the shadow cabinet and make her front and centre, not hidden like she was during the election campaign. And I really hope, for the sake of moving this party forward and for the sake of actually having any chances of winning elections, that this is indeed a winning ticket of Sussan Ley and Ted O'Brien. But the opposition lost the election because they went Labor light. And look at the contrast now. The Labor cabinet met today to take their group photo. They're all smiles, but unified. And the Liberals, fresh from a leadership ballot, are now desperately trying to rebuild after their election loss with a leader who just scraped over the line. They have no clear policies yet and are largely becoming at odds with their coalition partners, the Nationals. And the Nats are basically propping up the coalition right now because they're not the ones who've lost a lot of seats. And this is an opposition which would want to shape up pretty quick if they want to have any chance of beating the Labor Party. Sussan Ley faces a massive challenge, but the question is, will she go bold or will the Liberals face years in the wilderness?